Hey everybody, look! It snowed in Tennessee, here in East Tennessee, and we got about 3 inches of snow on the ground. And with the snow on the ground, we get some other interesting things. We get deer tracks. And I captured on my game cameras, which I'll show you, about 6 deer coming through here. So today we're gonna get the dogs and we're gonna go for a woods walk and see if we can find us some antler sheds and track some deer. So let's get parked and get the dogs, and we'll do a little tracking. So we're right at the point where the deer cross the road here, and fortunately it is right at my property line. So they came through right at the property line because I've got a little trail that comes through here. So let's start tracking them and see if we can find out where they go. Well, I can see one problem already. While they are following the trail along my property line, my assistants here are gonna disturb the track. So we're gonna have to be very careful at how we follow the trail. Although it looks like that way they stopped and they actually turned into my property this way, off trail. So let's follow that for a bit. I always thought deer would follow the paths of least resistance, but it's actually pretty brushy through here. They could have followed a trail that's not too far away, but they actually came through and weaved their way through this. Looks like a couple of them jumped the creek and went that way, but the rest of them are following the creek edge, so we'll follow the creek. So this is kind of interesting. They came up a very steep part of the hill, crossed here, and literally jumped over this huge pile of logs up a hill, which we are not going to risk climbing over, but there's an odd way for the deer to go. But Piper's tracking them, so we'll go around the pile, try and figure out which way they went. So it's going to be a little hard to see this, but we're going to try. Right there we got deer scat. And this is interesting because it goes off this way, and just to the right of it is actually a trail that's about 6 feet wide. So again, the deer chose to pick their own path versus use an actual cleared trail that's just over there. So if you were hunting, you'd be off by about 20 feet. And right where Piper's going through and right where Gunner's going through, they actually came through here and were ducking under all these trees. I'm gonna have to duck under myself. Holy cow. Interesting. Again, not really the path that I would have thought that they'd take. Now, we've got these fallen trees here, so I get that they wouldn't, they wouldn't go too far from that. But there's actually a cleared trail about 30 or 40 feet that way. And instead they're choosing this path through the woods that you can kind of see the footprints through there. Some of them are Piper's now, but very interesting. Just a little more evidence we're definitely on the right trail. They took a little break here, but you can see as you go along this wooded path, it goes to my neighbor's field, and we're coming up on the property line. You can see some flags waving out there in the distance. So they were using this path to come through here to get to his field to get something to eat. So we're coming up on the corner of my property, and we won't be able to track them out into the meadow. So we'll take a turn and see if we can find some tracks that stay inside our property. So we found a deer highway. All these tracks along here, minus just 1 or 2 that Piper put in. Looks like they're running along here. Now there's a creek not too far that way, so they're probably running this ridge. So let's follow the deer highway and see where this goes. This is a little more open too. they're following this. It's much clearer to see where you're going. And again, there's a natural trail over that way. This is pretty open though, so we'll follow this set of footprints. There's like 5, 6 sets of tracks through here. All right, we've been hiking around now for a bit, and I'm using my iPhone GPS to figure out where I am, because this part of the property I don't have flags along the property line yet. And I tell you, the one thing you hate to find when you're going through the woods, and I mean, I'm in the middle of nowhere. There are no trails anywhere. And you know what I find? Yeah, here's what I find. Can you tell what those are? Yeah, junk tires. I cannot believe it. Out here in the middle of nowhere, 2 tires, no trail anywhere, so I don't know how I'm gonna get them out of here to the UTV. There's no trail at the moment. But somehow, at some time, a decade ago, when there probably was a trail, somebody decided to dump 2 tires. So 2 more to clean up. Not what I was hunting for. So here's an old deer stand, and we walked all in through there, checking out all this, and all the places where you'd think there'd be deer tracks, there's nothing. So very interesting. I mean, there's a water supply, there's a creek, it's flowing right now from a spring. There's another creek just on the other side of this hill feeding into it. And there are 0 deer tracks anywhere in this whole part that deer stand faces. So, you know, you got a deer stand up, and really the best way to tell is, are there deer, are there signs of deer? And there are no footprints out in this part of the woods at all, none. So, bad spot to hunt. So we climbed up to the top of the ridge from the deer stand, and there is a single deer went through here. It's a little hard to tell, but the deer stand's way over there, and that is, of course the camera makes it a bit odd, but it is probably 150 feet away through a lot of trees. So definitely would be a very lucky deer shot through all those trees. And only 1 set of tracks through here, so definitely not a good place for the deer stand for next year. Well, I think we might have found a spot where a bunch of them were bedding down. It actually is near the top of a hill, and there's all these circles of leaves. Now, surprisingly, they're kind of out in the open, but to me, it looks like something was curled up in each one of these spots, and Piper is very interested in the smell. So it seems like maybe, and there are, oh, yep, there's scat right there. So they were definitely hanging out. Maybe it's not a place to bed down, but it's a place to take a little bit of a rest. So this is an interesting area. It's near the property line. There's no trail here yet, but definitely looks like some bedding spots, because I've seen about 6 deer together on the camera. So very interesting. Following trails in the snow is helpful. So we're just past that bedding area, and we're heading to where there's water, and the trail goes along the fence. The fence is the property line here. And there's a little pond on that side, and the creek flows down into my property. And so basically, I think the deer rest where we were showing before, and then they trot along the fence or jump the fence and go get a drink. So let's go by the pond and see. Yep, Piper's following some footprints through here. Try not to fall down the hill, but here they go. Piper hasn't been this way yet. We're actually ahead of her for a change. And the deer is going down this hill, and right up here, we're heading towards where the pond is. It's just over this next hill. So the deer tracks, this is hard to tell, but this is steep downhill. then steep uphill, and just over this one, there's a pond. Not on my property, but the deer are definitely coming through here. There goes Piper following the trail, sniffing along. That's where the deer went through. Thank you, camera assistant, for showing the trail. But I'm gonna have to set the camera down because I'm gonna need to use my hands. It's so steep. But just over this hill is where the pond is. So Piper and Gunner kind of wiped out the tracks, but here's the pond, and that's on the neighbor's property. And basically the pond comes through, flows under the fence, and down and around, and this is all on my side. And the deer tracks were leading down from along the property line down to this gully, and then back along here where Piper's going now. So they're clearly coming up here and getting water from this spring or getting it from the creek and staying on my side of the property line. And of course Piper put tracks everywhere, so now we can't track them that way. But basically this area in here is definitely a deer highway. Right, Piper? Deer highway? All right, be careful, that's steep. Good girl. So as we're leaving the pond that was up there, this is a trail I actually put in, and the UTV can actually drive on it. And we've got two sets of deer track that are heading towards the pond. So here there's an actual trail that I put in that the deer are actually using. So I guess sometimes the deer are going to use the easiest way that man put in. Other times they're going to use the easiest way that nature put in. But it looks like two deer side by side, or one following the other but out of step, came through here. And of course now Piper's messing up all the tracks, but they came through here. And then they left the trail and went off down towards the creek. And there's no other footprints on the trail. Interesting. And we just found another area where a whole bunch of tracks are coming together. This is on the trail that I made. And again, there's about 6 or 7 areas here where the leaves are all rooted up. And all, now granted, there's a bunch of dog footprints in here now, but lots of deer tracks converging from off trail, from the trail I made, coming from that way, going off into the woods, going off into the woods. So clearly this was a good spot where they would come and root around or take a nap. Well, I'm gonna wrap things up here after a couple hours of hiking around with I guess a conclusion of the deer are in places I thought they would be. But as an example, this is the abandoned county road over my shoulder, and there are 0 deer tracks on this whole thing. So surprisingly, the easiest place for the deer to traverse, they really don't use it much. I mean, they crossed over at the road near the gate, but for the most part, they are not using the wide open things like the abandoned county road or trails that I created and use in general. There are not any tracks on that. So I guess when you're looking to go deer hunting, cameras are critical to see if they're really going where you think they are, or it's really good to go out after a snowstorm and check out the tracks. But you might want to leave your track makers at home, because I'll tell you what, these guys made a mess of things kind of quick. It's hard to track in the snow if you're letting them run loose. So thanks for watching. Have a great day. Please subscribe, and hope 2025 is better for all of us. Have a great day.